Back in September, Austin Goolsbee was appointed chairman of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, the two-person agency charged with providing the president with objective economic advice to help shape his policies both at home and abroad. Along with Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner, Goolsbee is part of the group that delivers a daily economic briefing to the president. He's been part of the president's inner circle and one of his closest advisors since the two met when Obama was running for the Senate in 2004. Goolsbee is now front and center in the administration's attempts to achieve agreement in Congress on this tax cut deal before they go home for the holidays. Mr. Goolsbee, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
And let's start there. You going to get a deal? Is this going to pass through Congress before Christmas?
I certainly hope it does. I mean, what the president got in the package is very important for the economy. And to see 150, 200 million people and their families have their taxes go up in less than 3 weeks, I think would be a serious blow. So I think everybody should take a step back. I understand the feeling that it's a bitter pill to swallow the high-income tax cuts. But what the president was able to get that is substantially bigger than that and important for the economy, whether it's incentives for investment for firms, whether it's a payroll tax cut for 155 million workers, money for college education, et cetera, is really important, and we can't let that go away.
You're predicting passage, though.
I'm predicting passage.
Let's talk about the rationale for this deal. This week, the president's economic advisor, Larry Summers, warned of the consequences of inaction here in a briefing. I'll put part of what he said up on the screen. Failure to pass this bill, Summers said, in the next couple of weeks would materially increase the risk that the economy would stall out and we would have a double-dip recession. Now, for months, this administration, the president's economic advisors, have been downplaying, dismissing the idea of a double-dip recession. And yet here, when it comes to building political support for this tax deal, suddenly this is the fear. Is this a scare tactic?
Well, look, I think that takes Larry's comment a little out of context. I think all private forecasters agree that when they saw this package announced, you saw them step forward and say that it would significantly raise the growth rate of the United States in the coming year if we were to pass it and get the unemployment rate down and jobs created more than they thought before that. And if you let these tax cuts expire, which they will in 20 days if we do nothing, I think that would be a serious blow to the economy. Everybody agrees on that. So I don't think we should get into the semantics of whether it's how much it raises the probability of double dip. I think we should just recognize not acting is very bad for the economy, and acting would be good for the economy.
What about the effect on jobs? Because that's what matters here, right? Whether the unemployment rate is going to come down. Ron Brownstein, in his column in the National Journal, is critical of that prospect of stimulus. This is, again, part of what he wrote this week. It further entrenches this deal, the Bush tax cuts, even though the median income and the number of Americans with jobs are lower today than when the tax cuts were originally signed in 2001, an almost unprecedented decade-long record of futility. What evidence is there that this kind of tax cutting is actually going to get people back to work?
Okay, be a little careful with that because the context before the president came out with this deal was a bit the cycle of dysfunction in which Democrats are putting forward reasonable ideas like a 3-month extension of unemployment, defeated. Extending the middle class part of the Bush tax cuts, defeated. The Republicans are also arguing about the Bush tax cuts. What the president was able to do in this negotiation was expand the board beyond just the Bush tax cuts. The important stuff in this, in addition to preserving the tax cuts for the middle class, are the Obama tax cuts. So you got incentives for education, a new payroll tax cut for 155 million workers, the earned income tax credit, investment incentives that are new. These are things which I think help the economy. And all I would say to Mr. Brownstein, who I respect a great deal, is that when they announce this package, it's not often that Washington announces something that leads the private economic forecasters to come out and say, we believe the GDP growth rate will be 1 point higher, but that's what they did.
But, Mr. Goolsbee, this is the tough question. The president and his economic team said in the first stimulus that the tax cut provisions there were the least stimulative part of the package. Now I'm asking whether or not you believe there's a change in philosophy here, that in fact tax cuts are going to put people back to work and stimulate the economy.
Well, The question is which tax cuts? I don't believe, the president doesn't believe that the high-income tax cuts work, period. I don't think the evidence supports that. And as I say, that's a bitter pill to have to deal with. But it's a compromise. And by giving that one piece, we were able to get a series of things that I think make a big difference to the middle class and to working families.
All right, but what about 2012? This is a 2-year extension. The president said, look, we're going to wait till 2012, make the case that these the tax cuts on the upper earners, that they don't make economic sense. What makes him think that he can make a better case in 2012? You really think in an election year you're not going to see a vote in Congress to extend these?
Well, I think the only argument that's being put forward by the Republicans of why to extend them are, as you come out of the deepest recession since 1929, we shouldn't affect anybody's taxes. In 2012, that's not going to be the circumstance. In 2012, I believe they will have to stand up and defend on their own merits that they think these high-income tax cuts work. And they will not be able to do that because they don't. But the point was, by giving on this one issue, the president got more than twice as much than the size of those for his priorities that are going to help us grow our way out of this.